This week on Extracts, Mugatu bites, sleepless nights. What a topic for this episode. Yikes.
It's the Vietnam War episode. Welcome to Extracts, a podcast where we introduce each other to our fandoms one episode at a time. I'm your host, Erin Cline, and X-Files spooky bitch.
And I'm your other host, Stella Cheeks, a slut for Star Trek the original series. Each podcast, we pick 2 episodes that fit a cinematic theme, watch them together, and then record our feelings.
And our theme this week is the Vietnam War.
We're laughing because we are uncomfortable.
Yeah. We sure picked this theme.
Today, we'll unfortunately be talking about the Season 3 episode, A Private Little War. Imagine what an episode of Star Trek that's an allegory for the Vietnam War would be like while the Vietnam War was happening. It's like that, but also worse. This podcast, like the Vietnam War, was a hell of my own making. Not that I started the Vietnam, but, like it was we collectively as a country, but,
Dig up, Stella Cheeks. Dig up.
In this episode, we find out Stella started the Vietnam War.
Look, if I had a time machine, the 2 things I would do would eat a Grand Michel banana and somehow get the funding for Batman 5 starring Coolio as the Scarecrow.
What did that have to do with the Vietnam War?
I'm just saying that if I had a time machine, that's what I would be doing. I wouldn't be starting wars.
Gotcha.
I would be
little do you know
saving on society with another Batman movie. Anyways.
And for the X-Files, honestly, there are so many Vietnam-related episodes, it was kind of hard to decide which one to pick. We've already watched Kitten, which would probably be my first choice because it's a really good episode. And there's another good one where, good is a loose word, there's another one where a man can effectively be invisible by walking in your peripheral vision. That's also a very good Skinner one. But in the end, we're back to Season 2 again this week with the very early episode, Sleepless. In this episode, Candyman seeks revenge on the men who experimented on him and his unit, removing their ability to sleep and generally fucking their entire lives up by weaponizing their dreams and hallucinations to kill them. Vietnam stuff. Are you ready for digging in there, Mr. Spock?
Let's get it over with.
Yeah.
I suppose he even knows you were holding his hand.
A good nurse always treats her patients that way. It proves she's interested.
A quick-ish episode summary. Bones, Kirk, and Spock are taking plant samples on the idyllic planet of Neural. McCoy is delighted by the variety of plants, while Kirk is waxing poetic about his time on the planet as a young lieutenant and how while the people were primitive, they were joyful and peaceful. Real Garden of Eden shit. Spock shatters that illusion when he points to a group of villagers showing up with guns in the distance looking to hunt the Hill People. Yes, they are called the Hill People. And wouldn't you know, Kirk knows one of those Hill People. Spock forbids Kirk from using his phaser, so he, to quote Bobby, Miss Piggy's a rock to distract them.
Did not hear that. What?
No, Bobby goes, hee-ya, when he threw it. See? You know how they say, don't bring a rock to a gunfight? Well, that's true, and Spock gets shot before they can beam back to the ship. On board the Enterprise, Spock is taken into surgery when sensors detect a Klingon vessel in orbit around the planet. Kirk suspects the Klingons of having supplied the firearms to the villagers and conducts an impromptu and unwanted symposium on the development of firearms in primitive societies. He's kind of a dick to the crew, but he immediately apologized because he's just a good captain and he's worried about Spock and also the Klingons fucking up that planet that he loves. Spock is in good hands, however, because Mbenga, a Vulcan specialist, is on board and on the case, so Kirk convinces McCoy to head back to the planet and investigate. Unfortunately, Kirk gets attacked by the Mugatu and gets a full poisonous bite, and the Enterprise has left orbit to avoid detection by the Klingons, so they can't help. Fortunately, his bestie, Tyree, has married a Canutu woman who can cure the bite with a little sex and blood magic. Nona tries to get Kirk to give Tyree his fancy weapons that she 100% saw McCoy using. Did we learn nothing in old/new Chicago? But Kirk refuses, and anyways, Tyree doesn't want to fight. Nona's pissed that she did not marry a big angry man, but Kirk does agree to give them regular guns after a fight with the Klingons, so maybe that sex blood magic did work. Who's to say? Tyree still doesn't want to use the guns. McCoy is pissed as shit that Kirk is giving the Hill People guns. Nona tries to seduce Kirk with magic only to be attacked again by Mugatu. He saves her because no one gets the drop on Kirk twice, not even a giant ape with spikes on its back. But Nona knocks Kirk out and steals his phaser. She takes it to the villagers, hoping that one of them would satisfy her lust for power, but they decided to sexually assault her instead. When Kirk, McCoy, and Tyree appear to save her, the villagers believe that she has led them into a trap and kill her instead. At her death, Tyree finally agrees to take up weapons and fight in the war he tried so hard to avoid. Meanwhile, back on the Enterprise, Spock wakes from healing and gets the shit slapped out of him by Mbenga and Chapel, because that's of course how Vulcans heal. And they head back to the planet just in time for Kirk to order Scott to beam down 100 flintlocks for the tribesmen. Scott questions the unusual order, and Kirk sadly answers serpents for the Garden of Eden. No one wins, everyone is wrong. Do not watch this episode. What did you think, Erin?
Oh boy, I would never have known that this was about the Vietnam War. Honestly, I had no idea. Like, we got to the end and I was like, wait, what? Yeah. Like, it feels more like a lazy Garden of Eden because...
No, that's a different episode.
Good Lord. Yeah, it's like a woman who wants the power and, like, is trying to convince men that they should, like, kill each other. It feels like she is Eve. Like,
yeah. Oh, no, they made it real sloppy.
It's super sloppy.
Writers are bad. But I guess to its credit, not credit, this went through a lot of rewrites and had a lot more Vietnam War references. But again, you must remember it aired in 1969.
It's like during, yeah.
Right. So it was written by Gene Roddenberry based on a story by Don Ingalls, who hated the changes so much that he wanted to be credited by under a pseudonym, Judd Crucis, which is his fun little wordplay on Jesus crucified, because he was so mad about the changes that he was like, you know what? Fuck this.
Well, I can't say that I blame him.
Yeah.
It's not good.
They put in a lot more weird sex blood magic.
Yeah. The sex blood magic is fucking weird. Her character is like
it's so
bizarre.
Messy. The only way you can like kind of tell that it's supposed, because it is supposed to be a Vietnam War episode, but the only one that like really makes sense, or like you can pull the allegory or metaphor, whatever, is that the conversation that Bones and Kirk has when Kirk, it's confirmed that the Klingons are supplying the guns to the village people, and Kirk is like, okay, well that means we have to supply guns to the hill people because we can't just let them get destroyed. Like, we won't supply them with phasers, but we'll just give them the same guns to like even the score. So it's supposed to be like the communists helping northern Vietnam while the allied forces help the southern Vietnam, and like it's a proxy war or whatever. It's like the sloppiest, and there's no resolution.
No, there's no resolution because the war isn't resolved in real life.
And so it's just supposed to be them being like, yeah, tough decisions keep getting made. No one's right. Everybody's wrong.
Sometimes war goes on forever. What can you do? Wink. Phase us up.
In the future still, like, war is sometimes a thing. Anyways.
Yeah.
Here's this hot woman. Oops, nope, she's dead. And I guess, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I guess there's also some, like, awful lines about war, which, like, are uncomfortable and bad, but, like, that line that the Klingon says, too, of, like, oh, you know, give the woman to the man who, like, killed the most people. Well, like, that shit happened in war, and it happens in war, and, like, it's very uncomfortable, but, like, also a stark reality. And so, like, they were really going for it full tilt with certain things that was very uncomfortable, and also the, like, village people versus the hill people, and, like, it's sloppy and bad.
Also, there's, like, weird holes, too. Like, maybe this is because I haven't seen enough, but also, like...
No, there are weird holes.
Why are the Klingons there? Why are they giving them increasingly, like, difficult levels of rifles instead of just giving them fucking
rifles
guns or phasers? Like, is it supposed to be like, we'll do this and then the Federation will come back and they'll never know it was us, except it's really obvious.
Yeah, because you know how your ship is just floating there in space.
Yeah, like, it's... But I did think that scene with the Klingon was pretty good. I thought
Krell.
Like the way that he is very casual about talking about this. He's not trying to hide what's happening. Like, it's just an interaction. Like, they've clearly interacted so many times that, like, this is nothing to him, and it feels like, oh, no one will ever know my fancy plan. And I liked that.
Right. But it's also confusing because it's like, okay, why don't you give them fancier weapons? Is it supposed to be sneaky?
Is
And
it-
also, like,
Are you teaching them how to improve them? Is that like the goal?
right?
But
It's like I teach a man to fish. But it wasn't like that because he was like, next time I'll just bring something better.
yeah, it was
Is it like supposed to entice them to like have their loyalty for the Klingon Empire? Maybe,
I
but
don't
like
understand it.
it doesn't make any sense.
It was fucking weird.
And this happens. This happens in other episodes too, where like they'll go to a planet and the Klingons are already there, and it's like, no, well, because we see them bop around and they're like, would you like to join the Federation? We have no guns and party hats or whatever. And the Klingons are like, they definitely have guns, but our guns are better, and we have bigger party hats. And then it's like, which side do you want to be on? Let's talk about morals or whatever. And then
whatever. Yeah, because there's like that ghost planet. The Klingons are like already there.
right. And there's
sort of.
Erin of Mercy, which interesting. This was written, and Kor, the Klingon from Erin of Mercy, was supposed to be in this one, but they probably couldn't have gotten the actor or whatever, so they changed it to Krell. And the only reason you know that is from like a casting or whatever. It's not like they say his name, but it was originally supposed to be Kor to be like, haha, we meet again, Captain Kirk, or whatever. But it does happen in other episodes that we'll see too. Like, it is a recurring theme, which when we get to the movies too, when we get to Undiscovered Country, where the Klingons are like now part of the Federation, and Kirk is like, I cannot accept this because of, all of these interactions. Like, it does build up on that story, but like just as a standalone episode, it's just like,
Why is this happening?
what are we doing here?
Yeah. Interesting.
It's dumb.
I guess, I don't know if that's the right word. I liked that every single one of the Triumvirate were injured. That, like, they just got, like, picked off one right after the other. Because Bones gets shot at the end, and he's, like, fine.
Yeah.
But he did get shot. Like, it fucking floored him, and he's got, like, a wound on his arm. But, like, Spock gets shot all the way through. He's got blood back and front.
Yeah.
And Kirk is mauled by a abominable dinosaur. That's what I wrote down.
It's called a Mugatu.
Sure.
It's like one of those classic Trek monster alien type things.
It's a great costume.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
A thing that I think you'll find is funny. So originally the name was supposed to be Gumatu, or Gumato, Gumatu. I don't know how to say it. But much like me, DeForest Kelley couldn't get it right, and he kept calling it a Mugatu, and they were like, fuck, I guess we just got to change it to Mugatu because this fucking idiot can't say it right. Which is also funny because the Lower Decks has an episode called Mugatu Gumatu as like a joke on it or whatever. But it is one of those like iconic characters like the Gorn, and it's a great design.
Yeah, it looks really good. I liked it a lot. It looks like an ape and a dinosaur and an abominable snowman all smushed together.
In the desert.
Yeah, like, it doesn't feel like it should be in the desert. And we also got some lore about it. They travel in packs. If they're in a place for a little while, they leave right away. If they've got a mate and you kill it, they're gonna fuck your shit up. Like,
Their bites are poisonous.
we got more lore about them than about any of the woman's tribe, other than that they were witches.
Yeah, they do like sex magic or whatever. And
Bizarre choice to make the monster like way more rich in lore.
honestly, you get more about the monster than like any of the people.
Yeah.
It's just like, these are the ones in the city. These are the ones in the hill. This is the one sexy witch lady.
The only woman on this planet, apparently.
There were some other blonde women in the hill tribe in the background, but they were just standing there like,
We're women. What are we supposed to do?
I'm just picking berries or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I loved Bones and I had the same reaction to the blood magic ritual. Just like,
Just
what
the
the
like
fuck?
wildly gyrating and putting the blood in there. And Bones was like, you could see him wanting to be like, nope, absolutely not. We're calling it off. But like, he knew like if,
He'll die. Yeah.
he's gonna die this way. On the off chance that this crazy ass thing works, like, I guess I have to let it happen. But also, he's probably still gonna die.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna watch him die with this writhing woman on him. I knew this was how he would go out. Also, Bones, I love him so much. He's one of the smartest people. He's also the biggest ding dong in the world. He's just like, didn't even look over his shoulder to make sure that nobody was watching him, like warm up the rocks.
To be fair, he was not down on the planet during Piece of the Action, and so he hasn't been directly around as many.
He's the one
I
that
know.
loses his fucking phaser down there.
I know. He's also the one who's like, we can't show them any rifles or phasers, but like,
What if it's for medicine? It's chill. Anything for medicine.
Anything for medicine. He thought he was alone.
He didn't even look.
Nobody looks at anything on Star Trek.
They should.
Yeah, I know.
Is this planet still here? Is there somebody watching me? So many problems would be solved.
But no.
But no.
I
Alas.
loved the scenes with Chapel. So good.
It's funny because the Mbenga, I love Mbenga. Like,
He was delightful.
he's great. If and when you get to Strange New Worlds, he's one. I have personally complicated feelings about Strange New Worlds. I know, whatever. But Mbenga is one of my favorite parts of it. The actor is good. The moral lore. He's in a bunch of books. Like, he shows up in 2 episodes and people were like, this guy fucks. I love his interaction with Chapel. When Spock wakes up, just do whatever he asks. You're not going to tell her that
Right.
It's like the sickest prank to be like, I know that you love this dude. And it is messy, and I have to watch it all the time. So I'm going to fuck with you. I like
Yeah.
it's like interpersonal, like.
I love that she's like, well, he definitely doesn't know that I held his hand. He's like, and he probably knows that you held his hand, eh?
Defo knows that.
I loved that interaction. Because, like, he's not in the room. There, he could have seen it from the hallway or whatever, but, like, it's just such a great, like, little pin at the end of that conversation of, oh, by the way, I know that you did this, and I think it's very funny.
Yeah, I love Mbenga.
They have great chemistry. I liked the two of them together a lot. I did like, too, that even when she held his hand, she even was like, this is awkward. I'm going to put his
I'm
hand
a big
back
weirdo, for sure.
That's what a good nurse does. She cares about her patients.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Chapel, whatever you say.
And when Spock wakes up and he's like back to normal, and she's like, yep, you sure fucking are back to normal. I have this idealized version of you, and then I talk to you and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
I only like you when you're asleep.
I only like you when we're not talking. I do think you should take your shirt off more, but
If you could be asleep and as naked as possible, that's fine. Could we just have adjoining rooms with like a 2-way mirror? I think I'd be happy with that arrangement.
it's like, can you please leave this ship?
No.
No, I will not be.
I'm a very talented medical assistant.
I'm the only hand-holding expert in the medical office.
I'm the only one on this ship with any goddamn bedside manner. Let me tell you what.
Yeah, that's for fucking true. That's so funny. Yeah, so I love all of the Enterprise scenes.
Yeah.
They're like great.
They don't feel like they're the same episode.
Absolutely not.
The tone is so different. Those are like fun and jovial, and like even though Spock is like dying or whatever, he's not. And we all know that he's not going to die. And so there's this just like, la la la, we're having fun. Let's slap Spock across the face a bunch of times. Oh, there's war happening, and Kirk is going to die. Like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, and also like the interaction at the end, we have these 2 very distinct interactions. We have Bones being like, Spock, you're alive, and Spock being like, yeah, no shit, idiot, I'm talking to you.
You can hear my voice, can't you, motherfucker?
Like, God, no, I can't believe I was happy for
Back
you for
to
a second."
normal.
But that's like typical Star Trek. And then you have Scotty and Kirk being like, I need guns. And Scotty being like, what? And he's like, I'm going to destroy this planet. Just happening right next to each other. Just the vibes are not the same.
The vibes are off.
The vibes
are
off.
super off. I don't know. I don't like have a lot of thoughts about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like interesting is not the word. It's also lazy. I don't know. Like they couldn't figure out another reason for Tyree to want to go to war other than like his
jealousy
or his wife being murdered. Like there's no other reason. So now it's like a revenge thing. Like
yeah, because I made a note too. Like man gets gun and 2 seconds later wants to do a jealousy revenge murder because he thinks that Kirk is trying to sleep with his wife.
But then he decides not to.
But
He's like, because Tyree was a solid dude. He was like trying to keep his people.
Not to. But also, like, having already felt that murderous jealousy once she's dead, I'm sure that didn't help, where it's like, I'll just escalate up to this.
For sure.
Which was good. I thought that was a good choice.
Yeah, his character arc is the most interesting arc in the thing. Like, she's just like one note, like, I need a big alpha male, my strong, angry husband. And it's like, yeah, he's not angry at all. Like, and then she like tries to get Kirk, and he's a lot more level-headed than she literally has to magic both of them.
Yeah.
And then the other dudes are like too violent.
Oh,
and
yes.
then-
I wrote that down as well. That was a terrible scene.
Yeah.
The like basically group rape.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was fucked up. Did not love that.
Yeah. It was
felt
bad.
like it came out of nowhere. But it's an episode about the Vietnam War and the horrors of war.
Right.
And like that is a horror of war.
And,
And,
like,
you can't
choosing
leave it out.
what side to try and align yourself with to try and be like the safest. Like she's like, I'm bringing you this gun, so like I'm gonna be with like you guys now, and they're like, no, you're still just like a hot lady, and we do what we want because we're like bad guys.
Yeah, it was. At first, I thought she was trying to kill the lead guy of the other one. It's like, oh no, you're just trying to defect. Okay.
Yeah, and then they were like, nope.
It would have been a more interesting story if she had tried to kill the other person. But,
Right.
like, no, we'll just do some light sexual assault and then he'll die.
Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
She was like a one-note character
Yeah.
that was just like awful, and then meets a terrible end. And
Really
starts a
bothered
war.
me that she didn't wear any shoes. Everyone else was wearing shoes except for her.
Hey,
I'm like,
she's a witch.
You're a hell witch or whatever, ma'am, but also, like, cover your fucking feet.
She can't, or else she'll lose her connection to the earth.
I guess so. My soul is with his soul. He's mine now.
Bones was
hell
like,
he is.
I think the fuck not.
Yeah, that reaction was excellent. I'm like, I do not.
Bones is great in
Who
this episode.
belongs to whom?
Yeah, Bones' like acting in this episode is great.
Yeah, he does a very good job.
His like impassioned speech.
That interaction, that conversation that they had where Kirk bangs the table and says, "All right, doctor." It's like, ooh, hot.
Yeah.
That's also a good scene. Liked that a lot.
Also, Bones, back to Bones being a dingus, like when they sneak into the Klingon and they're all hiding, and then Bones is like, yeah, we're hiding, and then immediately fucks with the tricorder. just really good at the things he's good at.
Yes.
And just those things only.
Damn it, man, I'm a doctor, not a field agent.
Yeah, this episode is not good. Honestly, this is one of my least favorite episodes. It is. I obviously chose Miri for the worst, and I chose the Paradise Syndrome for does not age well. But this is just bad. It's just like there's the stuff on the Enterprise is fun, and like Bones' acting is interesting, but it is
It's just not very good.
It's a skippable one for sure. But then you get the Mugatu, which is like important, and like Star Trek, it's hard to skip some stuff.
Watch it, but then don't re-watch it, maybe.
Yeah, never.
It's good for a full rewatch and nothing else.
This is the only episode in season 2 to not have a happy ending. No space lefter.
Interesting.
That's what the note said.
Probably good since it's about an ongoing war.
Yeah, not great. The other two things, there was not like a lot of apocrypha about this because this episode blows, and also like, I mean the Jesus like Christ thing is very funny. But like if you want to read more about this planet, in the IDW comic book, there is a one issue in the miniseries Blood Will Tell from IDW where this story is told from the Klingons' point of view. It's called The Order of Things. So if you wanted to know more about their, why they didn't just... Maybe some of the answers would be answered in that. I doubt it.
Mm-hmm. It was a cool planet. I did like that when the very first scene opens, it's very sunny. It's unusual to see like really sunny other than the Alice in Wonderland planet, basically.
Right. And Kirk being like this, I spent so much time here. I mean, that stuff is interesting, learning more about like Kirk.
Yeah.
And like,
what did he tell Tyrese that he is sworn to silence about? Do we ever find out?
I think just that like, hey, I'm like an alien.
Oh, okay.
That
makes sense.
We're like pretty advanced, so keep that to yourself.
So he got cum drunk and told him that one night or whatever. Yeah, okay.
He's my friend. We roommated together.
We lived together for the several years I was on this planet, just him and me.
I think he was only there for a little while. He was there for 3 years. It's been 13 years since he's been there.
Well, he said he did like a whole survey of the whole culture. He had to have been there for a little while.
I don't know. Starfleet's pretty sus.
How long does it take Captain Kirk to move in with someone? Is it like lesbian rules?
Oh,
like
100%.
Okay, so
Are
they
you
like
kidding me?
meet in a bar and he's like, I'll be living with you tomorrow night.
It's lesbian girls, and then like, but the relationships don't last because he's like, oh, but I do have to go back to space.
Okay, all right.
It's transient lesbian roles. There's also a novel called Serpents in the Garden, which takes place just prior to the motion picture and has Kirk returning to the planet to be like, so, gave you all those guns. How's it going?
Not great.
I haven't read it, but I assume the answer is not great.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Also, if this is right before the motion picture, that means that Spock is not there, and neither is bones. So then it's probably just Kirk being like, well, I'm lonely. What's going on,
I'm gonna
guys?
go visit my ex.
Yeah, hopefully he's still alive. Anyways, I'm pretty sad. Still a captain, though, so.
No one can take the Enterprise from me.
Yeah.
Not yet.
From his cold
Let me
dead
guess.
hand.
Tuesday?
Let me guess. Yeah.
I know that reference.
You got the one. You got the one. All right. Well, this episode blows. Let's
Okay.
do synopsis. Shana.
Let's do it.
The Vietnam War was really bad, as is this episode of Star Trek. I really phoned it in on this one.
Every single one of the triumvirate gets injured, and a woman in a Lazy Eve allegory pushes the planet to war. Anyway, give them all guns.
That's it.
That's it.
That's the thing. You ready for Scully? It's me.
I am.
The article makes no mention of a fire.
Yes, Agent Mulder, I can read.
All right, now for a quick-ish episode summary. A man sees a fire in his apartment and attempts to put it out. Firefighters are running into the building and pass Candyman in the stairwell. He also has a distinctive mark on his neck. But let's be real, we all recognize that that's Candyman, and I will continue to refer to him as Candyman. The firefighters find the one seeing the fire, not Candyman. The firefighters find the man's lifeless body, but no signs of fire anywhere. Mulder gets an anonymous tip that gives him the man's frantic 911 call and tries to take on the case, only to discover, one, that Skinner's like, get fucked, basically, and two, that it's already been claimed by another agent, Alex Krycek, in our first appearance. Mulder says, hey man, why don't we work together on this LOL psych and get Scully to perform an autopsy on the man while he heads to the clinic. But look out, Mulder, because Krycek is also insane and is ready to make it your problem. The two of them travel back to Quantico together. I like to imagine in total silence because Mulder would absolutely do that. Where Scully tells them that on the outside, he has no marks of being in a fire, but when you open him up, woo boy, does it sure seem like this man was cooked to death. Meanwhile, Candyman has appeared in the apartment of another Vietnam vet to confront him. Suddenly, a wounded group of Vietnamese people appear in the apartment, holding guns. They gun down the other vet, but he too appears on the outside to be totally fine. Mulder and Krycek do some detective work, for once, and find a scar on his neck and realize that he was in the Marine Reconnaissance Unit stationed in Vietnam in 1970. He was one of the only two survivors, the other being Candyman Cole. The boys, I'm still going to call him Candyman.
Augustus Cole.
Augustus Cole. Preacher. The boys go, I'm just going to refer to them as the boys. The boys go to the VA hospital where Candyman has been housed for years and find that he has been discharged even though his doctor does not remember doing so. Enter X. First appearance. Mulder meets X for the first time, still recently grieving the very public death of his original source and one of his many dead father figures, Big Ron. X tells him about a secret military project that eliminated the need for sleep by lobotomizing the soldiers. X also gives him the name of a POW who was mistakenly marked as killed in action. Mulder is like, maybe I'm a little suspicious, but also I miss my fake dad and I love free information, so thanks, Mr. X. Candyman tries to rob a drugstore. So, reasons. And before Mulder and Krycek know it, the two cops watching over him have shot each other in the head. Mulder, of course, is like, it's obviously sleep magic, and hypothesizes that Candyman can project himself into people's dreams and subconscious because of hand-wavy thing about not sleeping for 24 years. I don't know. Mulder figured it out. The boys head to a train station in hopes of finding the doctor who actually performed the lobotomies and seems to be next on Candyman's dream hit list. Mulder thinks he sees Candyman shoot the doctor, but surveillance footage shows that this was all in Mulder's head, and actually Candyman has successfully kidnapped the doctor. Luckily, it also shows them where the doctor is, and when they get to them, before Candyman is able to fully dream murder the doctor, he convinces Candyman convinces Krycek that he is holding a gun, and as Krycek sucks butt and is still a cop, immediately shoots him dead. Oh, and by the way, he was just holding a Bible, you fed. Mulder and Scully both find their files missing, and it is revealed that Krycek totally sucks butt and is a rat, and Mulder was right not to trust him. Anyway, the Vietnam War was bad. The end.
The end.
The end. What did you think of this episode?
I actually quite like this episode, despite the fact that the sleep magic rules are inconsistent as shit and don't make any sense.
Why does Mulder get shot and not die?
How is he controlling them while everybody's awake? Like, the sleep magic part makes sense.
He's going into their subconscious. So even though they're awake, he's able to project himself into their subconscious, especially the ones who don't sleep, because how would he get into their dreams.
That's true. Okay.
It is confusing.
It
I've
is
seen this
confusing.
episode like a dozen times, and I'm like, okay, I think I get it.
Yeah, maybe Augustus just wanted him to think he got. Maybe I don't know. Why didn't?
Yeah, I guess that's true. He's not actually trying to kill Mulder.
Because he also feels guilt for killing all of those people. So he's only trying to kill the people who deserve, in his mind.
Yeah, that's true.
Totes do deserve to die.
They killed 4,300 people.
Yeah.
Between 13 people. That's fucking crazy.
Probably die.
Yeah. They definitely deserve to die.
For sure. So maybe he's like, I'm not doing more murders. So this is just,
4301, man. That's what gets you. I mean, sure.
Sure.
Why not?
Yeah, so that was confusing, but now that you explain it, that makes more sense. Like I said, I quite liked this episode. I like that I got surprise Skinner because I was told there would be no Skinner here. So I'm glad for my little tiny sliver, my little morsel.
Listen, there's more coming later. You'll
My
get it
little
eventually.
morsel of Mitch. What?
Listener note, during that last sentence, Stella Cheeks hunkered down like a goblin in front of the microphone while she said tiny morsel.
Morsel of Mitch.
Hey, look, I literally am fed dregs, okay? I have to survive on what I'm given.
I survive on scraps.
Listen.
Scraps
You've
of
seen
Skinner.
so many good Skinner episodes.
Not enough. It'll never be enough.
Well, there's not enough. That's true.
That'll never be enough.
Wait till they get to seasons 8 and 9.
I would love to.
I mean, you'll get there in a year and a half.
When we're done.
We're so close. We're more than halfway through this.
Sure. So that was nice. It was nice to finally see some more Krychek, because I think I've seen him once, but barely. Fun to see the introduction of X. And then, I mean, the character of Preacher was super interesting. He's obviously like a really good actor. It's like a pretty nuanced performance. The final scene is like fucking heartbreaking.
So good.
I was like wrecked. That it was so good. Lots of good character actors, like Bobby was saying while we were watching it. The scene where the guy in the diner, I think his name is Saul, was like,
Sal, yeah.
Describing everything. It's like a cool,
the way it's shot looks fucking great too. You
Yeah.
feel like you're inside of his anxieties.
Totally. And the reveal of these people have not slept for 24 years, and also knowing that the military is super duper fucked, and probably didn't perform. I doubt. It's highly unlikely that there are people out there with sleep magic, but you never know. And the military did a lot of fucked up shit, and these episodes to me are the ones that are kind of the scariest, because it's the military is fucking scary, especially back in the Vietnam War era and stuff. They were desperate and had way too much funding. I mean, they still do, but whatever.
Different, yeah, it's definitely different.
Vibes, lots of clandestine shit happening, and so that sliver of reality in the supernatural is super, upsetting. And then just the concept of the sleep magic and stuff is really interesting, to be I can project this into your subconscious to the point where your body believes it.
Believes that you're
right?
dying. Yeah.
And we've said this before, I think here, but also I think lots of people know this, but one of the reasons that actors and stuff go crazy is because when you pretend enough, your brain and your body do think that certain things are happening, so you can pretend to be having a panic attack and elicit a real panic attack.
Yeah.
And so it is an interesting scientific way to explain the supernatural, to be this body believed it was burning, this body believed that this stuff happened. I think that's really fascinating. Overall, I actually quite like this episode about a heavy as shit topic, but
I'm surprised.
good.
I wouldn't say that this is a bad episode by any, but I don't.
It's heavy.
Yeah, it's not one I would pick to watch a lot. If it's on, I'm gonna watch it, but I'm not you know what I'm in the mood for.
Well, yeah,
Candyman makes Vietnam Revenge.
It is heavy, and it's not fun to watch, but it's got solid performances.
It's a great introduction to Alex Krycek too,
For
because
sure.
he's a total piece of shit, and he's a smarmy little kiss ass, and you get that immediately.
Right, you get that he's a kiss ass, but if you didn't know that he was a piece of shit, right, and you're they're trying to replace Scully and they're trying to keep them apart, but the way that he goes about it, and he kisses ass to Mulder, but he's people make fun of you, but there's some of us that believe, and Mulder is highly susceptible to praise, so
amazing,
yeah, right. So that all you would see him he struggles with both X and Krychek in this. Like, he's been burnt by trusting people, and he's like, oh, I can't trust anything. But he also is so susceptible to people and does trust people way too quickly.
Yes, absolutely.
So you see him struggling with it because his instinct is to be like, yes, I trust this person. But his brain is telling him, wait, I did just see that guy get shot, and he was my father figure. And
Right.
Scully's been taken away from me. And like, so you see the struggle. And then at the end, because if you don't know, like if this is the first time you're watching it and it's 1990 whatever, or the internet doesn't exist, like it's a good reveal to be like, oh, this piece of shit.
Yeah.
He is a kiss ass, just like for the bad guys,
Right.
Of which Skinner is not one.
Yes, that's true. Skinner is removed from that meeting, and I like that they make that choice early, even though they hadn't really made choices about Skinner at that point. I like that. One of the criticisms about this episode is that people feel like it's revealed too early that Krychek is a bad guy. But I disagree. And maybe that's because I didn't have to watch this week to week, and maybe it's because my experience with Krychek is done in like a binge format. Sort of. I mean, how fast can you really binge 9 seasons? Like, there is some spacing. And like, we were talking too right before we were recording.
9
like,
days. You could do no sleep 9 days.
I'm not insane. Oh, I bet those guys watched a lot of great TV.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's all they have to do. Because, like,
yeah.
they said, like, not at first they weren't tired, but then you could tell from them, like, Saul and Augustus is like, I'm just so tired. Like, they have to take serotonin so, like, they are tired. So, like,
it's just that they don't need to sleep.
Right. And they can't sleep, right? So, imagine being tired but not being able to sleep. You can't really
I have an infant. I'm aware of what it feels like.
You can't
it's
really read a
awful.
book. You can't really pay attention. That's why that guy was watching like QVC, because he can't really pay attention. And he's just like smoking cigarettes. Like, so even if you were awake, like at first they were like, yeah, at first it was great. We didn't have to sleep and we were like, you know, whatever. And then we went insane and now we can't function barely.
Yeah. Yes. Chris Carter wrote a similar episode for season 1 that got scrapped about like what makes a perfect soldier, but he said that he liked the way that this one was written more because he liked that it played with sleep, and he said sleep is where demons are released in our dreams, which sure, absolutely, but like that idea within this script makes a lot of sense. You've killed thousands of people and you can't ever process it.
Right.
Like you never get a chance to like lay down and think like, oh fuck, this just haunts you all the time. You never get a reprieve from it. Your body never, like your body physically heals while you're sleeping too. And so 24
your brain
years.
washes itself.
Yeah, your brain washes itself. Your like muscles reknit. Like you get injuries and your sleep is really important to fixing those. And like, so the idea that you are just awake all the time and you can never deal with physical, emotional, psychological demons is fascinating and truly horrifying.
Also, like, I mean, they don't really go into this, but like, so they get this sleep surgery. They are a really effective crew, but then they go AWOL and just go fucking ham and kill tons of people. But the military doesn't try and stop them because they're still killing people that they don't care about. So they're like, yeah, so you're...
And they would have to admit that they did this to them.
But like, what is the in-between of like, we've gone crazy in AWOL and we don't care what who we're killing, what kind of places we're infiltrating, and then to getting back into society, being reintegrated. Also, like, when does the guilt start happening? When does like what? Because
it sort of seems like, because Sal says that the last thing that they did was the massacre, the school children one, and so it feels like that's it. That was the trigger, is that they finally crossed a line where all of them were like,
oh shit, yeah, I guess that's fair.
We can't come back from this. Like, sure, we killed women and farmers and priests and shit, but like a whole school full of children is like a whole different fucking thing.
Yeah, that's fair. Because it was like 24 years, like the anniversary.
Right, it had like just it had been 20 years since the anniversary, which means 4 years they were doing that.
Yeah.
4 years they were just like killing and going AWOL, and like I think the idea is that they're bored and that's why they go do these massacres, because they're like, you can't give us orders
also,
fast enough.
Are they hallucinating? Like, did they start to hallucinate and then, you know, Preacher got a hold and like figured out how to control the hallucinations and stuff? Like, probably, right?
I always read it that he learned how to control the hallucinations when he was in the psychiatric
hospital.
hospital.
Sure. He was like testing it on other people and stuff. But like that, but like you can see, like maybe the hallucinations started happening and then he realized like, oh, I can actually control these, or like, you know, so who knows what they were, you know. They were sleep deprived. They were crazy.
Yes.
Not sleeping makes you go crazy.
Yeah, it makes you lose your fucking mind. People aren't supposed to not sleep.
Yes.
It's terrible. Chris Carter says this is his favorite episode.
I buy that.
I can see
The
it.
name Augustus Cole is good.
Yeah.
He was like, I really nailed that one.
Yeah, that wasn't just a dartboard. He was like, that's a good one.
I thought of that one.
I fucking nailed that.
Nailed it.
He also talked specifically about how good Tony Todd was, Candyman, and how
Yes,
he did.
I know his name.
He did a fucking great job. I don't know. You're new to horror. What do I know? Just some more like apocryphal stuff to add onto this too. Howard Gordon wrote this episode. He was inspired to write it because he was suffering from a 2-week bout of insomnia.
Ew.
Which, yeah, I can, again, having had an infant now and recently, like, there was only one time that I was up, it was my shift, and I was up overnights. It was like 2:30 in the morning, and I was like, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to fall asleep, and I'm going to drop this kid. And Gene was like, a month and a half, 2 months old. And so I was like not totally used to the sleep deprivation yet.
Right.
And I literally had to put him in the Mamaroo and was like, I think I'm hallucinating. Like I was like seeing stuff down the hallway. Like it was fucked.
Lollipop Man?
Not Lollipop Man. I kept thinking an old woman was coming into our house.
Terrifying.
It was fucking horrible. And especially when you're like, I've got this little gummy bear infant. What am I supposed to do? And I just had to like lay down on the couch and be like, I need to not. I just need to not for a minute. And that was a month. That was just a month of being fucked up on sleep. Like
That's 24 years.
right? Like 3 years of being fucked up on sleep like that. No wonder they went AWOL. Like you would lose your mind. It's fucking terrifying. Horrible.
Scary.
Some more apocrypha, like just a couple of things about this. Mulder uses his alias George Hale, which you have seen tagged in fan fiction, and now you know that's what that is. That was explained in another episode that we watched earlier too. George Hale is a visionary behind the Palomar observation station in California. So like, of course, Mulder would use that as a name because that's what Mulder does. He's a nerd. Let's see. There's a red Jeep Cherokee that passes by the Grisham Sleep Disorder Center, and it's the exact same car that Frank Black drives in Millennium. And so a lot of people think that it's a crossover between the two. Like Mulder and Black were like sort of in the same place at the same time, which I just I think it's very cute.
It's a delight.
Amtrak trains do not stop, nor have they ever stopped in the borough of the Bronx. That station doesn't exist for Amtrak, which I think is very funny. X, this character, was originally intended to be played by a woman. And the original casting was, like, I'm going to fuck this name up super bad. Natasha, right? Natasha Nagurlich. She plays Admiral Alana Nikavia?
It's all messy. She does a guest appearance on Star Trek TNG. You could just say that.
And DS9. She plays a recurring character. But she was originally cast in the role, and they shot her first scene, and then they immediately recast her because they basically said, vibes are wrong. we don't like this. Vibes are wrong. And so
Mulder doesn't have mommy issues. He's got daddy issues.
yes. I think that ultimately that's exactly what it was. They were just like, I don't know. You don't have the right chemistry. She was like, okay.
All right, whatever.
Okay, fine. I kind of like the idea that it would have been a woman, but I agree. I think for Mulder's character, it kind of needs to be a guy. He's got
and he's good.
so many daddy.
And we get
he's
that
so good.
Elevator fight scene.
There's
so,
the
like,
elevator fight scene. You know, Skinner's not going to punch a woman in the face, probably, maybe.
I don't think he would.
Not to that extent, no.
Yeah.
If she punched him first, maybe. We'll see. But then X goes on to have just like a fucking great run. And like the conclusion of his character is so good and is foreshadowed in this one. Spoiler, he dies for Mulder. And like he says in this episode, I'm not willing to give up my life like Big Ron did. And spoiler, he does. Anyone who gets involved with Mulder in any capacity, Mulder's like, you'll die for me. And they're like, I guess. I didn't really want to do that. I like my life. Okay.
Sorry.
I guess I'll die in your hallway. It's fine.
It's fine.
I just have some like FBI trivia, whatever. That's in the notes. You can check that out on our Patreon. That's it. Not a lot for this one either.
Great.
Fantastic. Just a good episode.
Just a good
I'm sure
episode.
Bobby has a lot to say.
Synopsis showdown?
Let's do it. A Vietnam exec's horrifying dream revenge murder, and Scully and Mulder flirt like teenagers. Also, Krychek is there. We didn't even talk about the fact that they flirted.
It was cute.
It was really
And
cute.
awkward.
They were like teenagers.
Yeah.
God, what's it like having a partner who's not so bad? Oh, it's fine. I don't miss you. Definitely not.
Secret meeting in the supply closet. We stole our files.
Are we gonna kiss? No.
No. Gotta find the files first.
5 more seasons.
Turns out, if you don't sleep for 24 years, you go fucking crazy. Forget aliens, man. The military are the real bad guys.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Also, spoiler for the rest of the series.
The aliens are just trying to leave because the military is like in their
Right.
shit.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
let us go. Ugh.
Big Ron died for this.
Big Ron died for this. Are you ready for Deep Throat submission logs?
I am. Tell me about these character actors.
Tell me about them.
Hit me. The pain will help me to consciousness. Hit me.
Hit you? No, I can't.
Blast you. Strike me. If I don't regain consciousness soon, it may be too late. Hit me. Harder.
Okay. So, starting with Star Trek, Stella dropped the bomb of story by Judd Cruises. Fucking brutal. Wrecked. In Don Ingalls' original storyline, the Klingon antagonist was Kor, as Stell said, from Errand of Mercy. Here's a memo on that from Bob Justman, criticizing that story point. Here we are in the outer reaches of our galaxy, and who should Captain Kirk run into but good old Kor, the adversary that he had encountered before and with whom he has been unable to get very far. Just think of it. Billions of stars and millions of Class M type planets, and who should he run into but a fella he had trouble with before? No wonder Kor doesn't recognize him at first. The coincidence is so astounding that he must feel certain that it couldn't possibly have happened. In Don Ingalls' second draft of the story, the character's name was changed to Krell. So that's the answer to that, is Bob Justman put the kibosh on that because he's like, we need to have more than just one fucking Klingon.
That makes sense.
I think it's a fair point. I do understand why it would be a cool fan moment if it was Kor again.
Well, yeah, and also just like Kirk needs a nemesis.
Yeah, right. This was directed by Mark Daniels. This was Mark Daniels' first time actually getting to film on location anywhere from Trek, because Trek doesn't actually do that a lot. It's always, like Erin said, weird to see the actual sun.
The outside.
Yeah.
The outside. Don't run on the grass or else you'll get killed.
The majority of the episode's location scenes were filmed at Bell Ranch, separating the San Fernando and Simi valleys, with additional filming in the Paramount Pictures B tank, where the village set stood, previously built for another production. So, other than that book that you mentioned, Serpents of the Garden, there's a background book called Worlds of the Federation, kind of like an almanac, and in that it reports that in the aftermath of the Enterprise departure, the Hill people and the Village people, 2 nations, split into 5 separate factions, which all begin fighting each other.
Fun.
Do you get it? Do you get what we're going for here? Do you understand what we're trying to draw? Yes. Moving on to some casting stuff. The stunt double for Nona, her name was Regina Parton, and she was badass. Parton was one of the founding and charter members of the Stunt Women's Association of Motion Pictures in 1969, along with fellow Star Trek stunt woman Mary Statler, who doubled for Joan Collins on City of the Edge of Forever, and Donna Garrett. All 3 did extensive credited and uncredited stunt work on TV and film before forming the organization, which still exists today.
Cool.
Fuck yeah.
That's Gary Piller as Yutan. He played the same character on both Guiding Light and Another World soap operas. That's his claim to fame. He just kind of took that character to a different soap opera. Paul Baxley as the patrol leader. He was a regular stunt performer and coordinator on TOS, who we've mentioned previously. This time, however, getting paid and credited for a role. We love to see it.
Money.
As the Mugato, that's our Horta boy, Janos Prohaska.
Yay.
I love this costume design so much. Would an all-white creature thrive in that type of ecosystem as a predator? Shut up, brain. It's a cool costume. It works.
We don't know.
Everything's peaceful, except for the Mugato.
What does the Mugato represent? That's Arthur Bernard as Apella. He was a stage actor and teacher at University of California. He also produced the film interview radio show Turning Point that ran from 1950 to 1965, where he interviewed a bunch of, film people in the burgeoning film industry. That's Booker Bradshaw as Dr. M'Benga. We'll talk about Booker Bradshaw here before we see him again in That Which Survives. He originally started performing as a singer, later earning an English degree from Harvard, and was also given a full scholarship to the Royal Academy in London. His TV work includes Tarzan, The FBI, Insight, and voice work on Goldie Gold and The Action Jack, Laser Tag Academy, and Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Laser Tag Academy.
He went on to become an accomplished television writer for series such as Planet of the Apes, Different Strokes, and Gimme a Break. That's Ned Romero as Krell. Super interesting, of French, Spanish, and Chitimacha native descent. He's an indigenous performer that comes back for both TNG and Voyager to play indigenous characters. He's Answara in the TNG episode Journey's End and Chakotay's great-grandfather in The Fight. Though a lot of his TV career is playing indigenous characters, better him than someone vaguely Italian, he was at first an opera singer and held a music degree from Louisiana State University and sang in like 5 different languages, like a very accomplished opera singer.
Rules.
That's Michael Whitney as Tyree. Played all the cowboys you can imagine, with notable roles in Death Valley Days, The Dock, as well as on Bonanza and Oil Strike North, and was married to model Twiggy from 1977 until his death in 1983. And then that is Nancy Kovac as Nona. During her teens, she worked as a disc jockey and did a lot of beauty contests, won a lot of titles as a model, and then began her professional television career as one of Jackie Gleason's Glee girls on the Jackie Gleason show in the 1950s. Also returned several times on Bewitched, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Brooks Law, and others. In 1969, she was nominated for an Emmy for her performance on Mannix in the episode The Girl Who Came In With the Tide. She was the girl who came in with the tide.
A mermaid.
Potentially? I don't know. I didn't look into the Mannix episode.
Dead bodies?
Oh.
Maybe that as well. Wow, that could
Your
go several different
realization
ways.
of like, it's a mermaid!
That just washed over Stell. That was... Erin, you like took the magic out of her.
Sorry. What else washes in with the tides? Dead bodies.
Mermaids only. But the scary ones with the little
Selkies?
teeth. Do not talk about Selkies, okay? I don't want to talk about Selkies.
On film, she made her movie debut in 1960s in Strangers When We Meet. Her most notable film role is that of Medea in the 1963 adaptation of Jason and the Argonauts. Funny enough, Jolene Blalock, who plays T'Pol on Enterprise, also plays that same role in the TV movie version from the year 2000.
Oh, she would be a great Medea.
Yes.
Also, Jason sucks.
Also, Jason sucks.
Most of the heroes suck.
Novak was also in The Silencers, Frankie and Johnny, and Marooned. She married New York Philharmonic conductor Zubin Mehta in 1969 and then decided she just didn't want to act anymore, so she didn't act anymore.
Good for her. Love a retired actor.
Moving on to X-Files and Sleepless, this is directed by Rob Bowman. Chris Carter actually visited the set of this episode on the night before he was supposed to begin filming the next episode, Dwayne Barry, which we've already watched here. He says of watching that process, Rob Bowman was doing a very elaborate shot with a very precise camera move. And the way he was lighting it up and the way he was directing the actors, I realized that there was so much that I didn't know. Because he was getting ready to direct Dwayne Barry.
What a great realization.
Dwayne Barry.
Dwayne Barry. Here's a couple quotes of Rob Bowman about this episode. Both Bowman and the writer, Gordon, had actually a lot to say about this episode. It was their favorites as well.
It's so wild.
Here's Rob Bowman on directing that group of Vietnamese performers. None of the people could speak English. I think it was the first time any of them had been on set, so they were looking at the camera, the people, and the hardware. I had to reshoot it another day, but the little boy in the foreground of the shot seemed to understand through an interpreter what the scene was about. The direction was along the lines of, this man has hurt your family and you've come to make him pay his debt. This boy gave one of these steely-eyed, dagger-filled stares. He did it every time.
He did a good job.
I remember saying to all of them, hold court with your eyes by looking very final in your conclusion that he has to pay his debt.
That kid was like, oh, he'll be paying.
I will hold court.
Also in this episode was the very first usage of xenon bulb flashlights, which cost the production company $7,500.
What?
And because they produce very, very powerful concentrated tunnels of light. Those big,
Yeah, the big like
flashlights
things.
that they're carrying along, along with
That Krychek can barely hold. He's just like swinging it around.
along with a few scraps of
just a little guy.
tinfoil. The lights helped Bowman achieve an aim of his, as he wanted to have plenty of exposure in absolute blackness. So they used these high-intensity flashlights and then just crumbled up pieces of tinfoil to angle the light specifically so that it would cut across people's eyes or like show just sides of their profile in the blackness.
Interesting.
Chris Carter is listed as a writer on this because he had kind of a basic concept, but a lot of the heavy lifting was done by Howard Gordon, who actually originally set out to write an episode of The X-Files all by himself. And as he was doing this, he was about 2 weeks away from the script being due. It wasn't done yet. He stayed awake for over 2 consecutive nights and was unable to sleep over the stress of this episode.
Ironic.
Horrible.
Then, again, 2 weeks out from when this episode's due, he has the thought, gee, what if somebody couldn't ever sleep? And he's like, actually, I want to write an episode about that. So he goes to Chris Carter and he says, I'm going to put a pin in this episode that I'm trying to write by myself. Here's this idea I have. Chris Carter said, whatever you want, just do it. I trust that you're going to do it. And he said, and it's kind of that trust that just gave me the confidence. So he came back with this beat-it out story and outline, and very, very little of it changed. But he said he wrote it in a fever dream over 2 days in that 2 weeks that he had.
Wild.
Moving on to some casting stuff, because there's a lot in this. As Dr. Saul Grissom, that is Claude DiMartino. He also has guest roles on The Sentinel, Viper, and Mysterious Ways. As Lieutenant Reagan, that's Paul Batante. We will see him again as a local police officer in Paper Hearts. Also guest roles on MacGyver, The Chris Isaac Show, and I guess I'm mentioning Viper again. As Detective Horton, that's Mitchell Kosterman, who we talked about for playing Detective Horton in Genderbender. It's really weird that
two
that
repeats
is
in this episode. That's interesting.
the same character
Yeah.
when we get Krychek as a different character, yeah. As Dr. Charon, that's Anna Hagen. Also, Mom on the Millennium episode The Fourth Horseman, was also in Reindeer Games and Double Jeopardy and the Highlander TV series, Vera Smith on the Dead Zone TV series, Samantha on the L Word, Connie on Bates Motel, and more. That's Michael Putonen as Dr. Pilson. He was also the motel manager in Deep Throat, was Martin Alpert in Elegy, and is a conductor in 731. He's also the only actor to appear in all 4 shows, X-Files, Millennium, Lone Gunman, and Harsh Realm, produced by 1013 Production, Chris Carter's production company.
Interesting.
We haven't talked about Harsh Realm a lot, but it only got 9 episodes.
Yeah. I know almost nothing about
I've never
it.
heard you guys talk about it. I feel like
It's a hip-ish hacker virtual reality show.
cool.
It has Terry O'Quinn in it, who we've talked about on this show previous and who you know from a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, it only got 9 episodes before it was axed. He was also on The Sentinel, SG-1, Viper, The Adventures of Shirley Holmes, Dead Zone, Smallville, Psych, Riverdale. Also, Season 4, Episode 19, he's the cemetery director in the Supernatural episode Jump the Shark.
Oh.
That is David Adams as Dr. Francis Girardi, most known for his roles in Bad Santa and The Rocketeer.
Wow.
Sometimes that's all I got, y'all.
Wow.
Sorry about that. That's Don Thompson as Henry Willig, and he's another character actor you
good.
might have seen around as well. We also see him in the Pine Bluff variant as a terrorist in a ghoul mask, and in The Walk as Lieutenant Colonel Victor Stans. The Walk. He's also Detective Gallagher in the Watchmen movie and Wally in Slither. And every single TV series I've mentioned in this X-Files section so far, while also being in the Blade TV series as Uncle Pat, Figursky on 9 episodes of Battlestar Galactica, Kovarsky on The Killing, and more.
Who was he on Battlestar Galactica?
Figursky.
Who the fuck is Figursky?
You need to rewatch Battlestar.
Or
It's on 9
conversely,
episodes.
don't.
Yeah, or conversely, don't ruin your life again.
She has so many tattoos.
I know.
I did do the thing where I looked up the episode.
Yep.
I don't know what anybody's name is.
That's the episode where they find out that they have a little brother.
Oh, the one that gets locked in a cage in hell that they forget about?
Well, the one that gets eaten by a ghoul, but then gets taken out of heaven to become the vessel for the Archangel Michael because Dean won't do it, and then gets locked into hell, and then they forget about him.
Okay, get ready.
Jesus Christ.
Get ready to do that again, because Don Thompson was in 2 episodes of Supernatural. Season 1, episode 9's Home as Mr. Gunther, and season 8, episodes 11, LARP and the Real Girl as Sheriff Jake Miller.
Okay, but LARP and the Real Girl is a good episode. I'm assuming it's the one where Dean LARPs with Charlie, and they are in Moon Knight, and it's very good. And season one, so whatever. But you must imagine Dean Winchester in a wig.
I'm doing it right now.
We're all doing it.
That's Jonathan Grise as Salvatore Matola, who's also, as you mentioned before, a huge character actor.
Oh, that guy. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I ever knew his name. Got it.
What's his name?
Figursky. This guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's part of the fuck the Klingons, we're gonna kill everybody revolution.
Yes.
Okay, yes, I remember him. Sorry, it was really bothering me.
So that's Jonathan Grise as Salvatore Matola, who's also a huge character actor. Everything from Laszlo in Real Genius to Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite, and everything in between. He was in Fright Night Part 2, Quantum Leap, a recurring character on Martin, a recurring dope dealer character on 90210, Brutes on 82 episodes of The Pretender, Roger Linus on Lost, Greg Hunt on The White Lotus, as well as so many other characters, and also 2 episodes of Supernatural where he plays the same character, Martin Kreezer.
I'm totally blanking. What season?
So that's Sam Interrupted, Season 5, Episode 11, and Citizen Fang, Season 8, Episode 9.
Oh, I don't know. It's probably some kind of demon or shit. I don't know. I don't care.
Which brings us to...
We talked about LARP. No, we talked about LARP in the Real Girl. I don't give a shit about anything else. He's kind of like a
we
demon.
hit a high.
Whatever.
We hit a high.
We hit a high. I'm just thinking about the... Look, Charlie, like makes out with a fairy. Dean wears a wig. It's very good.
If you could see Erin's face during all of
Charlie
this.
deserves it.
I don't even know who Charlie is.
Charlie's his Dean's lesbian best friend, and he really does need a lesbian best friend. She keeps him straight, but not straight. You know what I mean? Played by Felicia Day. We all love Felicia Day. Don't worry about it.
We do. Which brings us to Tony Todd as Augustus Preacher Cole. Tony Todd, while also being horror and sci-fi royalty, is an actual vet and heavy supporter of veterans funds and support groups. He studied at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Institute, appeared in several repertory and conservatory groups while teaching playwriting at Hartford Public Schools. His stage work is extensive, and of course, he's most widely known as Candyman from his work in the 1990 remake of Night of the Living Dead, roles in The Crow, The Rock, NYPD Blue, Final Destination, Boston Public. SG-1 is Lord Hycon, voiced Vorgonaut in Half-Life 2 and Half-Life Alyx.
He does a lot of voice acting, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
General Yuma on 24, Spencer Pope on Splatter, Director Graham on Chuck, voices Dreadwing on Transformers Prime, Darkseid in a bunch of DC stuff.
Yeah.
Zoom on The Flash, and is voicing Venom in the upcoming Spider-Man 2 video game. Venom. And so many more horror movies and cool shit, while also being a huge figure in Star Trek, which you don't know. But
I don't know.
I
don't know.
He's Worf's brother, Kern, in a bunch of episodes in The Next Generation. He is older Jake Sisko on Star Trek DS9.
Oh my god, yeah.
And he's the Alpha Hyrogen on Voyager. So he's like a huge recurring character actor in Trek as well. It's a bunch of really big, important
I forgot
characters.
about the Cisco stuff.
Yep. His sister, Monique Dupree, also known as Gata, is a pro wrestler who's like been on AEW and a bunch of stuff, and she's also done a bunch of horror movies. I didn't know they were related.
Neither.
A personal quote from him: "It's very interesting that most of the roles I gotten are grim when I'm actually a very well-adjusted man and had a happy
got a nice
upbringing."
smile.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess there are some dark shadows somewhere in there, but I'm just a big kid. Got a lot of shit in post-production right now. has had one of those really interesting careers where he's done a lot of horror and sci-fi and fun stuff.
Yeah.
He has such a distinct look. I feel like that's part of it. It's really easy to throw him
tall.
into a different universe and be like, you, get in there.
Unless he's being shot like a horror monster. Like in this episode, you really lose how tall he is because he's
you see that he's
mostly
thin.
standing at a distance from everybody. But yeah, very commanding presence. Very, very good at his job. Take naps. They'll save your life. Bye.
I wish.
Now time for our overall thoughts.
All right.
You'll have a much better chance of finding Cole if you work up a profile and try and surmise his next move.
All right. I'll sharpen my pencils and I'll see you later.
These are both about the Vietnam War, sort of.
Well,
I mean, one of them is.
One of them is very much about the Vietnam War, and one of them was trying to say something about the Vietnam War, but also didn't know what it was doing, and also was like, here's this hot lady or whatever.
Seems
and
like
also,
a good allegory for the Vietnam War, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a fucking mess. It's a goddamn mess. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows the point. It shouldn't have happened. Nobody likes to talk about it. Nobody likes to relive it. It is actually maybe really solid.
Not in the way that they intended, but it did
hardly
work.
ever is. I don't think these episodes tie together particularly well.
Except that they're both about the Vietnam
Yeah.
War, and that's kind of in like the horrors of war.
Spock goes to sleep sort of to reset and
Erin shaking
regrow
her
his
head no.
body.
Erin shaking her head
and
no. Erin shaking
and
her head
in
no.
the X-Files one, they can't do that. So it's like in one, you really do, need sleep.
To forget the horrors of war. Demons or whatever.
Or to regrow your pancreas or whatever.
Yeah, sure. If his heart wasn't where his liver's supposed to be, he'd be dead.
Yeah. Vulcans,
Ugh. Green-blooded motherfuckers.
Look great without shirts on, though.
Oh,
yeah.
so good without a shirt on. As a fan, how would you say this episode holds up compared to the others that you've seen?
Honestly, I don't think it holds up any worse than a lot of other ones do. It's just not very good. It's not
Yeah.
like there are things about it that are like really dated weirdly or like that
Yeah,
feel
it's just like a bad episode.
it's just a bad episode. And so like it holds up fine as a Trek episode. It's just not a very good one. It holds up fine among other ones. The stuff on the Enterprise is excellent.
Yeah.
Holds up super well. All of that is great. But the stuff on the planet sucks and like is messy and lazy and
super lazy.
ugh.
And also, like, women, they just want one thing: your
Ugh.
blood and guns.
Ugh.
Like, two
You
things.
know, power.
Two things: blood, guns. Oh, one thing: power. Yeah.
Yes. How did this hold up as an X-Files episode?
Really good. I think it's a really solid episode. Good acting, an actually compelling story about Vietnam, and like because even if you take out all of the sleep magic, the idea of like people not being able to go back to who they were, like when Augustus is like, I don't remember verbatim what he says, but something like they took part of my brain. Like, I'll never be the same. I can never be the same person. Like, that is the reality of war.
Yes.
You're never the same person. A lot of vets can't sleep, even if they want to, if they need to sleep. So, like, I think it's actually it's a good X-Files episode because you get all of the, like, lore and introducing people, and it's, second season, whatever. So it sets up a lot of stuff. And then the actual story itself holds up really well, I think. So I think it's I wouldn't say it's my favorite episode like Chris Carter, but I think it's one of the most solid episodes. I think it's really good. I really like it, actually.
Right. I'm glad. This is the fun thing about X-Tracks. Like, you get introduced to shows out of order, and I think it's easier to appreciate them as just like an individual piece of the whole.
Yeah. What is the most Star Trek moment of this episode?
Kirk being in a cave covered by a fuzzy blanket. I feel like that's happened so many times. Trek loves a man in a cave covered by a fuzzy blanket.
Look, it's very romantic.
I mean, I'm not upset about it.
One of them is being nursed back to health by the other one. Like, that's a heart comfort that we're here for.
Yeah, totally. The interactions between Kirk and Bones regarding the planet, and then eventually I'm beholden to this planet because of this blood sex magic.
Yes.
Felt very Trek. I think those really stuck out for me.
I'm trying to think for. I think the most. I usually have a funny answer for this, but I think the most X-Files moment is when Mulder and Scully abandon their duties to like confer together, right? Like Scully's like, oh, I have a class, and he's like, don't worry, I'll come later or whatever, and she's like, okay. And then she calls him and is like, no, you gotta come here now. We gotta talk about this. And then they like have like a loud whisper meeting.
I love that Alex is just like in the back lurking,
there,
and they're just
like
whispering
we're
at each other.
still definitely doing this together. Like even
We
though,
would be whispering if you weren't here, just to be clear.
but they both like abandon whatever they're supposed to be doing to work together, even though they're literally not supposed to be talking to each other. Yes. And that is very X-Files.
Yes, I definitely agree
Just
with
like
that.
Krychek says, he's like, I think separating them was the wrong call.
Yeah.
It's making it worse. This is a big problem.
This is a much bigger problem than you described.
You made it seem like it wasn't. It totally is. It's like really bad, actually.
Mulder made a friend, and now it's all of our problems.
Who are you shipping?
I don't know.
Not shipping Bones and Kirk.
I mean, Bones and Kirk, sure, but even then, like, I don't know. I guess that scene between the two of them where they're like arguing about guns.
Well, and also like when he was watching her do the blood magic, he's like, this one's mine. Get off.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because like normally, yes, I am drawn to that
That's
ship,
fair.
but for this one, I don't know. It just wasn't. Weirdly, I felt like, oh, I understand the like push towards Chapel and Spock. Like, I don't want them to kiss ever, but this episode felt the most realistic of the way that she like has this crush on him.
Yeah.
It didn't feel bizarre at all. It was just, it almost felt like she was like, God, I wish I didn't like this person.
Oh, for sure.
And I liked that. I liked that interaction.
Well, and also like Plato's Stepchildren, I believe is after this. So, right? Yes.
Yes. And also
No, is it? Because this is season 3. I have no idea. Let's look it up.
what I was going to say is another thing that Strange New Worlds does really well is contextualize that relationship between Chapel and Spock.
Well, look, come on.
The type is.
Yeah, okay. So this one is before Plato's Stepchildren. So by the time they get there, you like okay, I don't want to talk about Strange New Worlds.
I don't like the characterization of Spock.
Right.
But I like what it does for Spock and Chapel going into the original series.
I guess I like it. I like it from Chapel's perspective because like I love the character of Chapel on Strange New Worlds, and I like what they're doing, and I think it justifies why she develops this like crush on him. But I also deeply hate the characterization of Spock on that show, so it's very hard.
I guess I'm looking at it for more of
Chapel's perspective?
character depth from
Yeah.
Chapel. Yeah.
Agreed.
It sets up the crush, and it sets up why she isn't so pressing to broach it.
Yeah, I was shipping Scully and Mulder. Their cute little flirting. That was cute. You separate them and I'm like, no, put them back together.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
They're so cute.
Put them back together.
It's a fuck fine or flop.
This is a fuck.
I'm surprised. I was not expecting
I like this
you to-
episode a lot.
This is like when we did Beyond the Sea and you were like, this is the best episode.
It's a really solid episode.
No, it's just unexpected. As someone who watches in order a lot of the time, these aren't ones that I'm like, these are one of the bangers.
Just like the antagonists. I was going to say villains, and they're not villains in either of those. They're antagonists, right? I like antagonists who are interesting and like they're doing bad things, but they have compelling reasons to be doing them.
They're very morally gray in lots
Yes.
of ways. Yeah.
Big fan of morally great characters in this house. Is this episode a fuck, fight, or a flop?
It's like a flop.
No, just say flop. Come on.
But those scenes on the Enterprise are really
it
good.
doesn't save it.
It's a flop. It's a flop plus, but it's a flop.
Yeah.
Those scenes are good. You want to watch Spock get slapped across the face
Yeah,
several
of
times.
course.
Those were good. A full flop has nothing redeeming about it.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's no such thing as a flop minus because a flop is a flop. But
flop
like,
is a flop is a flop, you
yeah.
know?
But this isn't like a fine minus. It's bad. It's too bad to be a fine minus. But those scenes are good. So I would flop with an asterisk, maybe.
Okay.
How's that?
Fine.
Okay, fine.
Fine.
Ugh. You can find us on the internet. You can follow us at NYD Productions on Twitter and interact with the show using the hashtag #ExtraXPod. You can find me at NYD Urgency on Instagram.
Erin said, you can find us somewhere else. I'm done. You can find me on Twitter at Stella_Cheeks.
Me on Twitter.
You can also email us at extraxpod@gmail.com with questions or comments. I don't really have a quippy joke about this one. So if you need a palate cleanser, actually, you know what? There's this really, really good McKirk fic. I don't know if it's TOS or AOS, but they're coming back to the planet Earth, I assume, where they live, to have like repairs for the Enterprise or something. So they're it's not shore leave, but they're homebound for a couple months, and Bones can't sleep because he misses the ambient sounds of the Enterprise, and he doesn't realize it, and he's like, I can't fucking sleep, and I'm just so happy to get in my fucking bed, and now I can't sleep. And Kirk, who is his husband in this one, is like, I figured it out, and then he like pipes in noise for him to sleep, and it's
He
cute.
stands by Bones' ear and goes,
But it's really, really fucking cute. So I do have a sleep one, actually.
Great.
We also have palate cleansers, and I'm sure if we clicked like somnophilia, we could find something.
Stell was talking about fic and said palate cleansers, but I heard phallic cleansers. So more on that note if you're looking for some.
I mean, they do share, Spock and Kirk do share a bathroom so they can clean each other.
If you're looking for...
I'm not looking for fucking douche fanfiction.
If you're looking for a link to a phallic cleanser or any other kind
Soapy
of
hand
cleanser,
jobs.
access to our company Discord, our bonkers episode notes, episode outtakes, which this part might become, who knows. You can go to our Patreon at patreon.com/NYD Productions and get access to all that and more for at least $1. Please and thank you.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and to tell your friends. We find that this nerdy shit is better when it's shared.
We'll see you next episode for Gamers Only. In the meantime,
believe boldly.
Seek truth.
Ship proudly.
Extrex is created and written by Stella Cheeks, Erin Cline, and Bobby Hoffman, and produced by Bobby Hoffman for NYD Productions. Our show theme is Alien Spy by Ionix, and our show art was made by Jonathan Curtis.